Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lecture 4 of Cricket South Africa's Level 1 Umpiring course, presented to you by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. My name is Tom Mokorosi. Between myself and my co-presenter Abdullah Steenkamp, today we will take you through laws 18, 19, 20, that will be me, and Abdullah will take us through laws 21, 22, and 23. As always, a quick reminder of our meeting protocols. I don't seem to have been able to deactivate your microphones and cameras. Please make sure that throughout the presentation, to avoid any distractions, you put your microphone on mute and your cameras off. When we get to the question and answer session after we have presented tonight's laws, you will be free to put your camera on and also unmute your microphone when you are asked to do so. Remember, you can write down your questions in the meeting chat box while we present so that you don't forget your questions. And let's please keep the questions related to the content that we are presenting in today's lectures. In lecture 7, which is our revision lecture and the last lecture, you will be able to ask absolutely any question on any cricket-related topic. Moving on to tonight's laws, we start with Law 18. Yesterday we spoke about how a team wins a match, and in short, it's all about scoring more runs than the opposition and getting the opposition out. So let's see what the law says about scoring runs. I'm sure you all know that the score in cricket shall be reckoned by runs. And when is a run scored? A run is scored so often as the batters at any time while the ball is in play have crossed and made good their ground from end to end in the opposite crease. A run is scored when a boundary is scored. Of course, we've got two types of boundaries, boundary 4 and a boundary 6. And there is a law dedicated to boundaries, which is Law 19, the next law that we shall cover. Runs are also scored when penalty runs are awarded either to the batting side or the fielding side. You'll remember from the very first lecture, Abdullah showed us that there are different signals for 5 penalty runs awarded to the batting side. You tap your opposite shoulder, and you remember that it is a tapping sound for the batting side. And if it's 5 penalty runs to the fielding side, you merely hold your opposite shoulder. Okay? So when it's the 5 penalty runs awarded to the batting side, you tap your opposite shoulder. 5 penalty runs awarded to the fielding side, you hold your opposite shoulder. We will see a video where Murray Rasmus awards 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. We'll see how he signals that particular signal. Then we have what's called short runs. What is a short run? Well, a run is short if a batter fails to make good his or her ground in turning for a further run. So if a batter or two batters attempt and complete one run, then it will be a run. You can only run short if you are turning for a subsequent run. Although a short run shortens the succeeding one, the latter, if completed, shall not be regarded as short. Only the first one will be regarded as short. Also, we often find that some batters bat from outside of their crease, and the law here tells us that a striker setting off for the first run from in front of the popping crease may also do so without penalty. So that means the likes of David Miller, who bat far outside of their popping crease, when he runs a quick single, he does not have to go back into his crease to start the run. He can take off from the position that he has hit the ball from and complete the run at the opposite crease. Let us watch a video on short runs. And here we will distinguish between deliberate short runs and unintentional short runs. They are treated very differently. Please pay careful attention to the video. Abdullah, let me know if there is no sound, but I do think there should be sound on.
Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This video is a new addition to the analysis series. Let's get started. On 15th of November 2018, second day of second test match between Sri Lanka and England, a strange incident happened. Let's watch the footage.
Tom, we suddenly lost audio. Visuals are clear, but audio not.
Is it back, Abdullah?
Yeah, the audio is back on. Thanks, Tom.
To understand what he signaled, he initially disallowed all the runs scored by the batsman on that delivery. Further, he informed the batsman about deliberate short running and awarded 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see what the cricket law has to say about running short. There are two categories in this, unintentional and deliberate. Let's take a look at unintentional short running first. If a batsman runs short, then the umpire shall call and signal short run as soon as the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. For example, if they run 2 and if they run 1 short, then only 1 run will be scored. Now, let's take a look at deliberate short run. Cricket law states that if either umpire considers that one or both the batsmen deliberately ran short, then wait for the ball to become dead and further disallow all the runs scored on that delivery, return the batsmen to their original end, and award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see why the umpire considered this incident as deliberate short running. As you can see, both the batsmen start running and then striker Roshan Silva feels that the ball will reach the boundary. But upon seeing Moeen Ali has stopped the ball, he runs back to the striker's end. But in between, the striker Roshan Silva did not ground the bat at all, which made the umpire to consider this as deliberate short run. If he had at least tried to ground the bat, then most likely that the umpire would not have considered this as a deliberate short run. 5-run penalty for this feels a bit harsh, isn't it? Now let's see why exactly this law exists. In an IPL match between Mumbai Indians and Kings 11, while chasing 231, Mumbai Indians needed 16 runs of the last over. Kieron Pollard, who faces the first ball of the over, strikes the ball and sets off for the run, thinking that he can come back for 2. But upon realizing that he cannot make it, he runs back to the striker's end without completing the first run. And it can be seen that he did that deliberately as he wanted to get back the strike. It is clearly unfair as he got 1 run and also he came back to the strike. To prevent the players from doing such things, this law exists. But in Roshan Silva's case, he was not trying to gain any unfair advantage. But since he did not make any effort to complete the first run, it was ruled deliberate short run. Still have any doubts with this? Do let me know in the comment section. If you like the video, then hit the like button and share with all your friends. If you have not subscribed yet, then don't forget to subscribe for more such contents.
Thank you to the Cricket Digest for that video. And I just want to touch on the incident involving Kieran Pollard. If any of you watched that match, you would know that the umpires did not award 5 penalty runs to the bowling side, did not report the matter to the governing body, and instead just called short run as if it was an unintentional short run. But that was clearly the case of a deliberate short run. And we normally witness deliberate short runs when a batter that is on form and has skills to win the game is trying to get back on strike like Pollard was doing there, and is most likely batting with a lesser batter, number 9, 10, or 11. So I think what we have there is a case of either the umpires did not know the law on deliberate short runs, or they were just too scared to award 5 penalty runs against a big name such as Kieran Pollard. It's important for us as umpires to A, know our laws through and through so that we can apply them in pressure situations when we need to. And B, we need to apply the laws without fear or favor of any player or coach or team. So please, guys, we need to be as unbiased as possible and also know our laws and playing conditions so that we can apply them accordingly when required. Let's talk about other forms of penalty runs to be awarded. Runs shall be awarded under deliberate short runs, as we've just seen. Yesterday, we mentioned that if a player returns to the field without permission of the umpires and comes into contact with the ball, the ball becomes immediately dead, but we need to call and signal dead ball because not many players know this law. And then we call and signal 5 penalty runs to the batting side. Illegal practice on the field we will deal with next week. Also can attract 5 penalty runs to the batting side, or if the batting side is practicing illegally on the field, then they would be awarded to the fielding side. A no ball, we all know, is a 1-run penalty to the batting side. A wide, Abdullah will take us through those 2 laws later this evening, is also a 1-run penalty. Illegal fielding, we will cover next week. And we touched yesterday on the ball hitting a helmet that is being discarded by the fielding side behind the wicketkeeper. That also attracts 5 penalty runs to the batting side. And then in laws 41 and 42, there are all sorts of misdemeanors that players can get up to and do get punished by 5 penalty runs. As mentioned, we do not cover laws 41 and 42 in the level 1 course. They are not examined. However, they are in this presentation, so you're welcome to have a look at them in your own time. As mentioned, the boundaries have a law on their own, and I shall be covering that next. Question for all of you. Can runs be scored by a batting side when a batter is dismissed? Let's see what the law says. When a batter is dismissed, any runs for penalties awarded to either side shall stand. So if there was a no ball or a wide, or there were 5 penalty runs awarded for whatever reason, those will stand. No other runs shall be credited to the batting side except as follows. If a batter is dismissed obstructing the field, the batting side shall also score any runs completed before the offense committed by the batter of obstructing the field. If, however, that obstruction prevented a catch from being made, then no runs other than the penalty runs shall be awarded. A reminder to please all stay on mute while we present. And I'm just going to go into the meeting room to mute everybody, and then I shall continue. Okay, that option is not available to me today. If a batter is dismissed a run out, the batting side shall score any runs completed before that batter's wicket was put down. If, however, a striker who has a runner is dismissed run out, any runs completed by the runner and the other batter shall be disallowed. We, in all playing international cricket playing conditions, runners are no longer allowed. However, the law does still allow for runners, and we will go quickly through that in Law 25 next week. But just to know that if there are runners allowed in your playing conditions, please be aware of how to deal with a runner. Now, who gets awarded runs and when? Let's see what the law says. Unless stated otherwise in any of the laws, if the ball is struck by the bat, all runs scored by the batting side shall be credited to the striker, except for the following: an award of 5 penalty runs, which shall be scored as penalty runs, and the 1-run penalty for a no ball, which shall be scored as no ball extras. You can have runs to a batter, penalty runs, and a 1-run penalty for a no ball all in the same delivery. You just need to be very careful as to how you signal all of those incidents in the particular delivery. If the ball is not struck by the bat, runs shall be scored as penalty runs, byes, leg byes, no ball extras, or wides, whatever the case might be. And Abdullah will be taking us through byes and leg byes later this evening. If byes or leg byes accrue from a no ball, only the 1-run penalty for no ball shall be scored as a no ball, and the remainder as byes or leg byes. What about the bowler? They always are very keen to have as few runs as possible against their names. When are runs recorded against a bowler? Well, whenever runs are scored by the striker, all of those runs will be recorded against the bowler's name. All runs scored as no ball extras will be recorded against the bowler's name. All runs recorded as wides will be recorded against the bowler's name. Now, when do batters have to return to their original ends when there is a dismissal. When the striker is dismissed in any of the modes of dismissals listed below, the not out batter shall return to his or her original end. Bowled, stumped, hit the ball twice, leg before wicket, hit wicket, and a new one to this list. This law was updated in October 2022, and it says that if a batter is out caught, then even if the batters crossed while the ball was in the air, the not out batter will have to return to his or her original end so that the incoming batter will be on strike to face the next delivery that is in the same over. Obviously, if that was the last ball of the over, then the non-striker for the ball that the batter was dismissed by will be at this end and will face the bowler in starting the next over. But if it's in the same over, batters will not cross, or their crossing will be ignored. That will always be the case when a catch is taken and the new batter will be on strike if the next ball is in the same over. Similarly, if a striker is out obstructing the field where the obstruction prevents a catch from being taken, then no crossing shall be taken into consideration and the non-striker will return to his or her original end for the next delivery. Right, let's move on to boundaries. And here we're going to see a couple of videos about boundary catches. I think it was Shekil who asked a question about boundary catching yesterday, and we said we prefer if those questions come with videos for us to be able to see what he or she is describing. And so at the close to the end of this law, we will see a couple of videos with a boundary catches or boundary sixes taking place. But let's first determine the boundary of the field of play. Before the toss, the umpire shall determine the boundary of the field of play, which shall be fixed for the duration of the match. So quite importantly, if you've got a multi-day match, the boundary needs to be the same from day 1 to day 2, 3, 4, and 5 for a test match. And similarly, even for a T20 or a 10 over per side match, a T10 match, the boundary cannot change from one innings to the next. It needs to be fixed for the duration of the match. The boundary shall be determined such that no part of any side screen will at any stage of the match be within the field of play. You do sometimes find on fields that the side screen forms part of the boundary. That is allowed, but law tells us here that the side screen cannot be inside the boundary. Where practical, the boundary shall be marked by means of a continuous white line or by an object in contact with the ground. And we shall see some pictures of objects that you may use to mark a boundary. Our first Green text for the evening means that this particular point is examined in the Cricket South Africa Level 1 exam. If the boundary is marked by a white line, the edge of the line nearest the pitch shall be the boundary. And similarly, in international cricket, we often see what are called boundary cushions, which are triangular shaped, and the inside edge of that boundary cushion is the boundary. So as soon as the ball touches any part of the boundary cushion, then the boundary is scored. Law says that an object such as a flag, post, or board used merely to highlight the position of a line marked on the ground must be placed beyond the boundary. So this is not similar to a boundary cushion. This is something completely different that is just a indicator to the umpires as to where the boundary is. And again, we'll have some pictures to illustrate these points. As mentioned, the inside edge of the line is the boundary. The boundary can be marked by means of a picket fence. In Australia, in the up until the late 80s, early 90s, they used to have picket fences. I think they're still quite common in many grounds around England. Again, the inside edge of that picket fence would have been the boundary. Very dangerous. You won't see it nowadays in international cricket. In international cricket, there is a safety distance that the boundary should be in from the advertising boards. I think it's 1.8 meters. I will allow Abdullah, when I'm done presenting, to correct me if I'm wrong. But at club grounds, you still find picket fences being the boundary, and the inside edge of that picket fence would be the boundary. Quite often, the line is not visible from 50, 60, 70 meters away in the middle of the field where the umpires are. So a boundary rope is most commonly used around the world to mark the boundary. And underneath that rope, it is preferable to still have a white line so that when the rope is moved out of place by a fielder fielding the ball on the boundary, then that fielder can put the boundary rope back on the line so that it is in its correct place. Again, the inside edge of that rope is the start of the boundary. As mentioned by law, poles or flags are merely an indicator of whereabouts the boundary is and are not actually the boundary. As you can see, they are pitched on the outside edge of that boundary line. And we know now that the inside edge of the boundary line is actually where the boundary is. If the boundary is marked by means of an object that is in contact with the ground, the boundary will be the edge of the grounded part of the object, which is nearest the pitch. And there, the boundary cushion is a perfect example of what the law is referring to here. Where there is no white line or object providing continuous marking, objects such as flags, posts, or boards may be used to mark specific points on the boundary. And the boundary shall be regarded the imaginary straight line on the ground joining the two nearest marked points. So let us go back to this picture and assume we don't have a white line. What that law is telling us is that the flags will then actually act as the boundary, and we need to connect the flags not with a rounded line, but actually with straight lines. Very, very difficult to judge as an umpire when you're 50 to 70 meters away, whether the ball has gone over the boundary when there is no line to see or rope for the ball to bounce over. So we do unfortunately have to rely on the honesty of fielders to tell us whether or not the ball had crossed the boundary, or they, when fielding the ball and when touching the ball, were over the boundary rope. Touching the boundary, sorry, there is no rope in my example. The fielder needs to tell us when they were in contact with the ball, whether their feet or any part of their person was grounded beyond the imaginary boundary line. Very difficult, even for honest fielders. Often they don't know. So please, wherever possible, try and play where you have a boundary rope, which is quite easy to see from far away whether the ball has hit that rope or gone over that rope, or a fielder has come into contact with the rope when also in contact with the ball. A boundary that cannot be identified shall be determined by the umpires before the toss. So you do often find that a rope, for example, is at the ground, but over the years, that rope has been chewed up by dogs or whatever the case might be, and there's a 15-meter gap in the boundary where there is no rope. So what you might want to do as umpires is put a traffic cone or a ball cone in the gap where the rope is missing. You just need to inform the captains exactly what you have done, that you are using as a boundary before or at the toss. Then what happens if we have an obstacle within the field of play? The law says that it shall not be regarded as a boundary unless so determined by the umpires before the toss. So this is quite important, and we're going to watch a video shortly about a tree at Pietermaritzburg Oval here in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. It is about 5 meters in from the boundary, and there is a custom at that ground that if the ball hits the tree, whether it is along the ground or in the air, whether it is at the bottom of the tree on the roots or at the top of the tree in the leaves, it will be awarded boundary 4. Okay, even if the ball was clearly going to go over the boundary rope for 6, if it hits even the highest of those tree branches or leaves in Pietermaritzburg Oval, the custom that is agreed and is confirmed before every toss is that if the ball hits the tree, whether along the ground or in the air, boundary 4 will be awarded to the batting side. What happens if a person or an animal comes onto the field of play The law says that while the ball is in play, it shall not be regarded as a boundary if that unauthorized person or animal comes onto the field and gets into contact with the ball, unless the umpires determine otherwise. If the umpires determine that if it was not for that contact made by the unauthorized person or animal, the ball would have gone on to go to the boundary, then they shall signal, the bowler's end umpire shall signal boundary 4. If the umpires decide that the ball would not have gone on to the boundary, then play continues and the batters can carry on running and the fielding side can carry on retrieving the ball. Quite importantly, there is no fixed decision here as to whether it's a boundary 4 or not. Each decision shall be made for each occurrence of an unauthorized person or animal coming into contact with the ball on the field of play. So let's have a look at a match in Pietermaritzburg. This was in October 2022. South Africa under-19 were playing against the home side, the KwaZulu-Natal Inland Tuskers, and a boundary was hit. Let's watch carefully and also listen carefully to the commentary by the commentators. Abdullah, just let me know if there's no sound or if you cannot see the delivery.
Just a single, that was brilliantly timed. There we go, that's gone, Miles. Oh. But it might only be 4 if it touches the tree. That's the biggest 4 you'll ever see. Christo?
I mean, cut the trees down here.
That's a 100-meter 4.
Cut the trees down, brother.
The best part is when the analysts do the projection like they do in golf, it will be showing a carry of 110 meters, but it's only 4 runs.
The biggest 4 I've seen. I mean.
Right, so the biggest 4 Matthew Boast will ever hit. That ball traveled high and mighty into the leaves of that particular tree. As you saw there, the umpire Katsontuli correctly signaled boundary 4 and not boundary 6 because the agreement at the Pietermaritzburg Oval is that if the ball hits the tree, whether along the ground or in the air, it will be awarded a boundary 4. Different grounds have different customs for different objects within the field of play. So please, when you get to a field that you are going to umpire for the first time, and you notice that there are overhanging leaves that are not necessarily the tree is within the field of play in terms of the roots, but the leaves are hanging within over the field of play. Just double check with the home captain or the ground authority what the local custom is for if the ball hits those overhanging leaves. So we know that there's a boundary 4 and a boundary 6. Let us see the law definitions of such. A boundary 6 will be scored if the ball has been struck by the bat. So that's quite interesting and very important. And is first grounded beyond the boundary without having been in contact with the ground within the field of play. This shall apply even if the ball has previously touched a fielder. So pretty straightforward. The ball has to be struck by the bat and it lands for the first time outside of the boundary. And this will be 6 even if it is parried over the boundary by a fielder. So a question to all of you, and I'd like you to type your answer in the chat box. A little scenario that you can picture in your head. A fast bowler bowls a short pitched delivery, commonly referred to as a bouncer. The batter attempts a hook shot, but misses the ball with his or her bat. The ball ricochets off the top of the batter's helmet and flies over the keeper's head, over the boundary, and lands in the pavilion. So the ball has not been grounded within the field of play. It has landed in the stands, on the seats, next to a spectator. So what are you as an umpire going to signal? Are you going to signal boundary 4 or are you going to signal boundary 6? Please type your answer into the chat box now. I will go through that scenario once again for you to all understand it clearly. Bowler bowls a short pitched delivery, which is also known as a bouncer. The striker attempts a hook shot, but misses the ball completely with his or her bat. The ball, after passing the striker's bat without any touch off the bat, the ball hits the striker's helmet and ricochets or bounces off the top of the helmet, flies over all the fielders, over the boundary, and lands in the pavilion. So the ball does not bounce in the field of play after it hits the helmet. So what are you as an umpire going to signal? I can give you the first signal. The first signal is leg buys, which Abdullah will tell us all about. And then what is your second signal? Is it boundary 4 or is it boundary 6? Please type your answer into the chat box now, and we will review those answers during our question and answer session after the presentation. So the law goes on to tell us that a boundary 4 will be scored when a ball that is grounded beyond the boundary, whether struck by the bat or not, so that's interesting, was first grounded within the boundary, or has not been struck by the bat. And that's a big clue for the scenario that I've just given you. Okay. When a boundary is scored, the batting side shall be awarded whichever is the greater of the allowance for the boundary and the runs completed by the batters together with the run in progress if they had already crossed at the instant the boundary is scored. So what does that mean? That means if a striker hits the ball and naturally sees that it is going through the gap in the inner ring, they will start running. If they have ran 3 and then the ball crosses the boundary, the greater of the allowance for the boundary and the runs completed is the boundary 4. So we will award only boundary 4. We won't award 4 plus the 3 that they've ran, we will only allow boundary 4. Okay. If, however, the batter hits the ball and it's a really big boundary, say one of the bigger ones in Australia, like the Melbourne Cricket Ground or Sydney Cricket Ground, and let's say all the fielders are on the offside and the batter hits a leg glance which trickles slowly towards the long leg boundary, and before the ball crosses the boundary, the batters have actually completed 5 runs, and only then does the ball cross the boundary. What will we award the batting side? We will award the batting side 5 runs, not 5 penalty runs, but 5 runs to the striker. Why? Because 5 is what they ran greater than the allowance for the boundary 4. Okay, I've never seen it happen, but law says that you can score more runs than a boundary 4 if you complete running more than 4 runs before the ball crosses the boundary. I hope that makes sense. The scoring of penalty runs by either side is not affected by the scoring of a boundary. Penalty runs always stand regardless of what runs the batter scores. Right, so let's go into the highly debated boundary catches. Let's learn about it first, and then we will have an example from a Big Bash League game last Australian summer.
Boundary catching. In cricket, a catch is considered to be fair if the fielder is within the field of play and the ball hasn't touched the ground before he or she catches it. The fielder must have complete control both over the ball and his or her own movement. Can a batsman be caught over the boundary? Well, this being cricket, the answer is yes and no. If the fielder catches the ball like this, with part of the body grounded outside the field of play, then the lucky old batsman is not only not out, but also scores a 6. However, if in the same situation the fielder has leapt for the ball from within the boundary, but not from outside it, caught it whilst airborne over the boundary, but managed to throw it up in the air before touching the ground, he or she can then step back into the field of play to complete the catch. It doesn't matter if the fielder throws it to a teammate or completes the catch on his or her own. In this scenario, the same batsman who just scored 6 would in fact have been out. As they frequently say, it's a funny old game. For oodles more details on this subject, take a look at Laws 19 and 33 in MCC's The Laws of Cricket.
Right, so let's have a look at a catch or a boundary 6 that raised a lot of debate in the BBL League in Australia last Australian summer. I'm going to play it without sound, and as it plays a couple of times, I want you in the chat box to decide, is it a boundary 6 or is the striker out caught? Here we go. Abdullah, there will be no sound for the first time that I play it. The fielder has both feet in the air when he pushes it back up and then comes back into the field of play to complete the catch. Let's have a closer look. Is this a fair catch or is this boundary 6? What do you think? Put your answer in the chat box now, please, before we listen to the commentary. Abdullah, please tell me if there is no sound. I'm sure there should be.
I've saw Matt Renshaw do this before, and I'm pretty sure this is out.
So if his feet are planted when he takes the catch again outside the rope, it's 6.
So if he makes the first contact from where he jumped inside the rope, and then when the last contact is made, he's back inside the rope, it's out. So as long as when he threw it up a second time, his feet were in the air,
Yes.
the last point of contact has to be back in.
So when he's outside the boundary rope, when he takes the ball again, his feet must be in the air when he throws it up again.
Effectively, he could throw it up 300 times as long as his feet are in the air.
Interesting. Effectively, he can throw it up in the air up to 300 times as long as his feet are in the air. So I think that's what raised all the controversy and the questioning of the law. So according to the law, because his first contact with the ball was within the field of play, and his final contact with the ball was also within the field of play, that was correctly adjudicated as the striker out caught. But Langton, I'm going to ask you when I'm done presenting, when Abdullah's done presenting, maybe just talk us through that. Was there a thought for the International Cricket Council or the Marylebone Cricket Club, the custodians of the law, to revise that law? Because to many people, it looked a tad bit ridiculous that the fielder can legally juggle the ball outside the field of play as long as his feet are off the ground and then complete the catch within the field of play. So let's chat about that later tonight, please, Langton.
I've saw Matt Renshaw.
Right. Then we've got overthrows or willful acts by a fielder. So an overthrow, for those of you who don't know, is when a striker hits the ball to a fielder and the two batters start running, and the fielder attempts to run out either batter by throwing the ball at one of the wickets. The ball either hits the wickets or hits the batter or misses everything and goes so far past the stumps that the batters are able to run again. So that is an overthrow. How in law do we handle this? And especially if the ball then crosses the boundary after the throw. So law says that if the boundary results from an overthrow or from the willful act of a fielder, and a willful act of a fielder could be a fielder deliberately kicking the ball over the boundary. There's a few reasons why a fielder would do that. Mainly because they think they are keeping the batter, the striker, on strike for the next delivery, but that's not necessarily the case. The runs scored shall be any runs for penalties awarded to either side. Those will always stand. The allowance for the boundary. So because the ball has crossed the boundary rope, that will be boundary 4. And then we also award the runs completed by the batters together with the run in progress if they had crossed at the instant of the throw or the willful act. Okay, so we're going to watch a video of the 2019 World Cup 50 over final between England and New Zealand, where there was a very lively situation involving Ben Stokes and overthrows. This will take us through the law as well as how we should count the runs.
Hello and welcome to the Cricket Digest channel. World Cup final match saw one of the most thrilling finish ever witnessed in an ODI match. However, an overthrow in the 50th over of England innings has sparked the debate. A throw from Martin Guptill deflected after hitting Ben Stokes, who was diving to save his wicket, and the ball crossed the boundary line. Many people were confused about how an overthrow is valid after the ball touches the batsman. Point to be considered here is everyone in the field, including the batsman and the umpire, are considered as part of the play, and the fielding side has to take this into consideration. Hence, the ball getting deflected from either a batsman or an umpire will not be called a dead ball. However, if a batsman makes deliberate contact with the ball, or if he deliberately comes in the way of a throw, then the ball will be immediately called dead and the batsman will be given out, obstructing the field. But in the case of Ben Stokes, he had come in the way of throw, but he did not do it deliberately. He was running hard to save his wicket and he did not make deliberate contact with the ball either. It looks unfair to the fielding side in this case, but one should also take into consideration that catching after the ball hits either an umpire or a batsman is valid. Hence, allowing overthrow was well within the laws of the game. But there was a mistake committed by the umpires in this incident. They awarded 6 runs, whereas only 5 runs should have been awarded. According to Cricket Law 19.8, if the boundary results from an overthrow or from the willful act of a fielder, then the runs scored shall be allowance for the boundary, which is 4 runs in this case, and the runs completed by the batsman plus the run in progress if the batsman had already crossed at the instant of the throw. Ben Stokes and Adil Rashid had completed the first run, but they had not crossed for the second run at the instant of the throw. Hence, only 1 run should have been awarded for running, and in total, 5 runs should have been awarded. Law further states that if the batsman had not crossed at the instant of the throw, then they should be sent to the end they have left. Meaning, in this case, Adil Rashid should have been sent to the striker's end, and Ben Stokes should have been sent to the non-striking end for next delivery. If this law was applied properly, then the New Zealand team would have had a good chance to win the World Cup. Do you feel any different? Do let us know in the comment section.
Right, so very important for us to know the law, how to apply it in a pressure situation, so that we can get those type of decisions right. And when I talk about decisions, I'm not just talking about out or not out. I'm also talking about how many runs are to be awarded when there is an overthrow and which batter is on strike for the next ball. Very crucial, as you saw there in the end result of the World Cup final 4 years ago. Last law that I'm presenting this evening is Law 20, the dead ball. We have touched on when the ball becomes dead a few times so far in this course. And we also mentioned that there are some times when you as an umpire need to call and signal dead ball. So those are the 2 different categories we're going to be looking at now. Is when the ball automatically becomes dead, and secondly, when we as umpires have to call and signal dead ball. So the ball becomes dead when it is finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler. And this is a bit of a contentious one, because what exactly is finally settled? And we will have another video where we can discuss and interpret if the ball was finally settled or not finally settled. in the wicketkeeper's hand. The ball becomes dead when a boundary is scored. Nothing further can take place. If it's a boundary 4 or a boundary 6, that is all that will happen in that particular delivery. The ball becomes dead when a batter is dismissed. Those of you who know and watch baseball, you'll know that you are able to dismiss more than one batter in the same delivery in baseball. That is not the case for cricket. Why? Because as soon as one batter is dismissed in a ball, the ball becomes dead and nothing further can take place on that delivery. Whether played or not, the ball becomes trapped between the bat and person of a batter or between items of his or her clothing. So sometimes fielders don't know this law, and you'll find that a striker plays a spin bowler's delivery, and the ball, after hitting the bat, gets lodged between the flap of the batter's front pad and the batter's thigh, and the short leg fielder comes running up to the batter to try and grab the ball from where it is lodged to try and claim a catch. That would be not out. Why? Because the ball becomes dead as soon as it is trapped between the bat and person of a batter or between items of his or her clothing or equipment and their person. The ball also becomes dead when, whether played or not, it lodges in the clothing or equipment of a batter or the clothing of an umpire. Note that the ball does not become dead if it lodges in the clothing or equipment of a fielder. Very important. The ball becomes dead when there is an award of penalty runs. We've mentioned this before, a player returning without permission and coming into contact with the ball. And then also if there is illegal fielding by a fielder, we will look at examples of illegal fielding next week in Law 28. And quite importantly, in either of those two scenarios, that ball, even though it was bowled and even though the striker had an opportunity to play the ball, that ball shall not count as one legal delivery in the over, and it will need to be rebowled. We've spoken also about the protective helmet discarded behind the wicket keeper of the fielding side. If the ball comes into contact with that helmet, then the ball automatically becomes dead. In points number 4, 5, 6, and 7, it is good umpiring practice. Even though the ball automatically becomes dead, it is good umpiring practice to call and signal dead ball, just to make everybody aware that the ball is dead. And then, of course, the ball becomes dead when the match is concluded. Nothing further can happen when the game is over. Quite importantly, neither the call of over nor the call of time is to be made until the ball is dead. So you as an umpire need to wait for the ball to become dead before you call over and time. Do not rush, and importantly, wait until both sides have considered the ball to be dead before you consider the ball to be dead. This is the point I'm just made. The ball shall be considered to be dead when it is clear to the bowlers and umpire that the fielding side and both batters at the wicket have ceased to regard it as in play. And I mentioned the first point of this law about finally settled. Whether the ball is finally settled or not is a matter for only the umpire to decide, and that is the bowler's end umpire to decide. So let us then watch a controversy in the Ashes about a month or two ago now at Lord's Cricket Ground involving two wicket keepers, Johnny Bairstow of England, who was the striker, and Alex Carey of Australia. And it is a 4-minute video. Please bear with me. I should start it about halfway in, but I'm going to play the entire video.
Australia's one win away from securing its first series victory in England since 2001.
Being up 2-0 is something we should be really proud of as a group.
It's a tough one to swallow, sort of getting so close.
The tourists needed 6 wickets on day 5.
Well taken. Carey again.
England's pursuit of 371 ground to a halt when a shocked Johnny Bairstow was stumped, an incident that incensed the crowd. The English players were also fuming.
Didn't look like a particularly well-mannered conversation.
A fired-up Ben Stokes revived memories of his heroic match-winning innings in the 3rd Test 4 years ago.
The epic way to go to a Test match 100. Well, he is there. England have hope.
He gives me nightmares, that guy. Seriously, PTSD from Headingley.
A missed opportunity when Stokes was on 114 looked like it would be costly, as the hard-hitting skipper continued his assault.
Yes, indeed.
Some real problems to work through there for us bowlers, and as a captain, I thought Stokes was fantastic.
With the home team needing 70, the Australians finally had their man.
Carey, Hazelwood combine to end a quite magnificent innings.
We're 2-0 down, but we've got 3 games left, and we've won series 3-0 against New Zealand, 3-0 against Pakistan, so we know we can do it.
History suggests otherwise. The only team to overcome a 2-0 deficit to win the series was a Don Bradman-inspired Australia in 1937. Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News.
Singing out, same old Aussies, always cheating.
There were ugly scenes at the home of cricket as Australians left the field at lunch on the final day. The normally genteel long room reached boiling point as the members vented their disgust.
Some of the stuff that was coming out of the members' mouth was really disappointing, and I wasn't just going to stand by and cop it. I just talked to a few of them throwing out some pretty big allegations, and I just called them up on it.
This was the incident that sparked the fire.
Oh, now this is going to be interesting.
Before the ball had been deemed dead by the umpire, quick-thinking keeper Alex Carey caught his English counterpart Johnny Bairstow napping. The stumping was certainly within the rules of the game, but whether it was within its spirit is now at the centre of furious debate.
If the shoe was on the other foot, I would probably just have to have a little think around the sort of whole spirit of the game and things like that. So, look, it's happened, it's out.
Is it going to affect relations between the teams?
Well, I can't imagine we'll be having a beer anytime soon, if that's what you're asking.
The Australian captain defended Carey's actions and the decision not to withdraw the appeal.
I thought it was totally fair play. That's how the rule is. I know some people might disagree.
You see Johnny do it all the time. He did it day 1 to Davey Warner. He did it in 2019 to Steve. It's a really common thing for keepers to do.
Cricket Australia said its players were verbally abused and physically touched as they made their way through the members' area.
The MCC came and apologised for their behaviour of some of the members.
3 members have been suspended pending an investigation by the Marylebone Cricket Club, which described the scenes as wholly unacceptable. Tom Maddox, ABC News.
So, Johnny Bairstow went walkabout. Alex Carey definitely did not consider the ball dead. the ball was not finally rested in the wicketkeeper's hands. He got rid of it as soon as he caught it. So according to law, perfectly legal dismissal. And it was stumped, not even a run out. Please, as I mentioned, you need to wait until the ball is dead before you call over. The only thing that could have saved Johnny Bairstow there was if the bowlers and umpire rushed to call over before the ball had been thrown by the wicketkeeper Alex Carey. But definitely the Australians did not consider that ball to be dead. So the umpires shouldn't and didn't. And Johnny Bairstow was rightfully given out. So we've covered when the ball becomes automatically dead. Now we're going to go into when we shall call and signal dead ball. The law tells us we need to call and signal dead ball when intervening in a case of unfair play. We need to call and signal dead ball when there is a possibility of a serious injury to a player or an umpire. We need to call and signal dead ball when leaving our normal position to consult with our partner. We need to call and signal dead ball if one or both bails fall from the striker's wicket before the striker has had the opportunity of playing the ball. Very important, only the striker's wicket if the bails fall off, and it needs to be before the striker has had an opportunity of playing the ball. If the striker is not ready for the delivery of the ball, and if the ball is delivered, makes no attempt to play at it, provided the umpire is satisfied that the striker had adequate reason for not being ready, then he or she shall call and signal dead ball, and the ball shall not count as one of the over. We saw in 20.4.2.1 that we need to call and signal dead ball when intervening in a case of unfair play. But actually the point I'm looking for is 20.4.2.2. We need to call and signal dead ball if there is a serious injury to a player or an umpire. So do you think that either umpire should have called and signaled dead ball, or was this rightfully given out as a run out? Apologies for the random music. I will mute it. The ball has hit the batter on the glove. The batter raised his hand to call for medic, but went walkabout just like Johnny Bairstow, and their very sharp fielder ran him out. Not a serious injury, in my opinion. This was at the World Cup qualifiers tournament. Maybe something that you can also talk to us about, Langton. I'm quite sure that the panel was in full agreement that it was not a serious injury and therefore correctly given as run out. If we can all remember to keep our microphones on mute, please, to avoid distractions for the other candidates. A couple of more incidents when we need to call and signal dead ball. When the striker is distracted by any noise or movement or in any other way while preparing to receive or receiving a delivery. And again, the ball shall not count as one of the over. If there's an instance of a deliberate attempt to distract the striker or a deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of the batter after the batter has had the opportunity to play at the ball, then we shall call and signal dead ball, and the ball shall not count as one of the over. If the bowler drops the ball accidentally before delivery, usually in his or her run-up, the ball sometimes can slip out of the bowler's hand, then we shall call and signal dead ball. If the bowler throws the ball towards the striker's end before entering his or her delivery stride, possibly trying to run the striker out, then we call and signal dead ball. If the ball does not leave the bowler's hand for any reason other than to attempt to run out the non-striker, what's often referred to as a man-cad, then we call and signal dead ball. We will deal with the man-cad in detail next week under Law 38, the run-out. If the ball in the field of play is regarded as lost, then we call and signal dead ball. There are many fields around the world which have manholes in them. So if the ball gets stuck in that manhole and cannot be pulled out or retrieved, then the fielders can call lost ball and the umpire will respond by calling and signaling dead ball. Sometimes there is a dangerous animal on the field of play. Perhaps the ball lands up right next to a snake, and on the field of play, the fielders will not go and retrieve that ball. Then you can call and signal dead ball as an umpire so that the batters don't carry on running up and down, scoring runs unfairly. That law used to be called lost ball. It is now incorporated into dead ball. If the umpire considers that either side has been disadvantaged by a person, animal, or other object within the field of play, and the ball has hit that person, animal, or object, then, but we don't think it was going to the boundary. I made that example earlier. If an unauthorized person or animal enters the field of play and the ball hits that unauthorized person or animal, if we feel as the bowlers and umpire that the ball would have carried on to the boundary, then we shall signal boundary 4. But if we don't feel that the ball would have gone on to the boundary, then we either let play go on, or if we feel that either side has been disadvantaged significantly by the contact with the ball by the animal or person who is not supposed to be part of the game, then we can call and signal dead ball. If the striker attempts to play the ball and no part of his or her person, whether grounded or raised, remains within the pitch, then we need to call and signal dead ball. Okay, remember the pitch width, 3.05 meters. If a batter has to go off the pitch to attempt to play the ball, then we call and signal dead ball. And then there's a catch-all phrase. If the umpire is required to call and signal dead ball under any of the laws not included above, then he or she shall do so. Right, that is a mouthful from me, Abdullah. Apologies for keeping you so long. And I think what we will do today is go through no ball and dead and wide ball, and we will leave it at that. And we will do buys and leg buys next week. So thank you for your patience and participation, Abdullah. Over to you for lots 21 and 22.
You are welcome, Tom. Good evening to you and good evening to the rest of the attendees. Law 21 covers the no ball, and the instances that we're going to cover tonight is according to the laws of cricket, when the umpires should call and signal no ball. You will find in many playing conditions across the world that there are no balls for certain incidents that happened on the field, but those are playing conditions for that particular competition. Just an example, in T20 cricket or 50 over cricket, there is a playing condition in place where it states that you need to have a certain amount of players inside the 30-yard circle at certain times. And if not, umpires then needs to call and signal no ball. But that is a playing condition in place for those competitions. But what we're covering tonight is, as per the laws of cricket, what is a no ball and in what instances should you call no ball according to the laws. Firstly, it deals with the mode of the delivery, and it tells us it's important for the umpire, as soon as a new bowler comes to you, and let's say the bowler hands you his or her cap, you need to ask the bowler whether the bowler is going to bowl right hand or left hand. And then you also need to ask whether the bowler is going to bowl over or around the wicket. And after getting this information, whether left or right and over or around, you then need to inform the striker of this. In the next slide, I will explain in more detail what is meant by a bowler going over the wicket and a bowler going around the wicket. So after obtaining this information, you've now asked, let's say the bowler informs you, umpire, I'm a right-handed bowler and I'm going to bowl over the wicket. And after informing the striker, if that bowler changes his or her mode of delivery, so while running in, after the bowler's informed you that he or she is bowling right arm and over the wicket, if that bowler while running in suddenly goes and bowl around the wicket, according to the law, that is unfair. And in this case, the umpire to call and signal no ball. If the bowler informs you that he or she is bowling with the right hand and then suddenly bowls a ball with the left hand without informing you, you need to call and signal no ball. Underarm bowling, also in the laws, is not permitted unless by special agreement before the game. For a delivery to be fair, the law wants the ball not to be thrown. So when it comes to the mode of delivery, I said the bowler needs to inform you which hand he or she is bowling, and then also if the bowler is bowling over the wicket or around the wicket. So looking at the pick, we will start from left to right. And this is how I remember which side, where the bowler is bowling over or around the wicket. Where the arrow is pointing, that's where the batter is standing. And so on the furthest end, so you need to visualize this. Where the arrow is pointing, that's where the batter is standing. On top, that is where the umpire is standing. So if the bowler bowls, and if you can visualize this, if the bowler's bowling arm is further away from the wicket, that bowler is bowling around the wicket. If the bowler's bowling arm is closer to the wicket, the bowler's bowling over the wicket. So just visualize the two pictures on the left-hand side. So it's a right-handed bowler. So in the first pic on the left-hand side, if you look at where the ball is in the right hand, and if the bowler comes from this side, the right hand will be further away from the stumps. His or her left hand will be closer to the stumps. So if the bowling hand is further away from the stumps, the bowler is bowling around the wicket. You always look at the bowler. You don't look at the batter. Whether the batter's left or right, that's irrelevant. When it comes to whether bowler's bowling over or around, you need to look at the bowler. Look at the bowling hand. If the bowling hand is further away from the stumps, it's round. The second pick from the left, again visualize right-hand bowler. Now if you see the bowling hand, the ball is closer to the stumps. And that is now the bowler bowling, right-hand bowler over the wicket. Similarly, same principle apply to a left-handed bowler. If we look at the furthest pick on the right, if you can visualize the ball is in the left hand, the bowler running in, you'll notice that the bowling hand is closer to the stumps. The left hand is closer to the stumps in the pick furthest to the right. That bowler is bowling left arm over the wicket. In the pick next to it, again visualize ball in left hand, bowler's bowling. Which hand is closer to the stumps? You'll see the right hand is actually closer to the stumps and the left hand is now further away from the stumps. And this bowler is now bowling left-handed around the wicket. That is just how I memorize whether bowler is bowling over or around the wicket. In the first slide, we saw that the ball should not be thrown, nor should it be delivered underarm. So what happens if a bowler throws the ball or delivers the ball underarm? Law tells us that umpire needs to call and signal no ball. Then the bowler's umpire needs to indicate to the bowler that this is your first and final warning. This warning to apply throughout the innings. You'll inform everyone. So what happens if in that same innings, the same bowler either throws the ball again or delivers the ball underarm again? Now the law tells us, yes, call and signal no ball again. And then you will ask the captain of the fielding side to suspend the bowler. The over needs to be completed by another bowler who did not bowl the previous over, nor is this bowler allowed to bowl the next over. You'll then report this, and you will report it also. You'll inform everyone and report it to the governing body. So what happens if a bowler, while running in, and before entering the his or her delivery stride, throws the ball towards the strikers in before delivering the ball? Law tells us that the umpire to call and signal dead ball in this instance. So bowler running in, and before getting to his or her delivery stride, the bowler throws the ball towards the strikers in. In this case, umpire to call and signal dead ball. This law came into effect 1st of October 2022. Prior to that, it was actually the umpire to call no ball. But since October 2022, the umpire now needs to call and signal dead ball if a bowler throws the ball towards the strikers in before entering his or her delivery stride. So when it comes to the feet, how does the bowler look at the feet? And when it comes to the no ball, so when a bowler comes in to deliver the ball, the back foot usually lands first, and then after the arm comes over, the front foot will then land. So the law looks at the back foot and the front foot different. So what are the laws when it comes to the back foot and the front foot? So we'll start with the back foot. So when it comes to the back foot, there's a certain crease that goes with the back foot, and that crease is the return crease. So what is the condition when it comes to the back foot and the return crease? Law tells us that the foot must land within and not touch the return crease. So if it lands within and doesn't touch the return crease, it's then a fair delivery. But if the back foot touches the return crease, it will be a no ball. So again, to confirm, back foot, return crease is the crease that you need to look at and should not be touching. What about the front foot? So when it comes to the front foot, here you need to look at the popping crease. So what does the law tell us? The front foot must land with some part of the foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the popping crease. So upon first landing, the front foot must land with some part, whether that foot is grounded or raised, and it must be then behind the popping crease. So the popping crease goes with the front foot, the return crease goes with the back foot. Second bullet point speaks about it's also a no ball if the front foot is on the same side of the imaginary line joining the two middle stumps. We will get, there's a picture in later slides that will illustrate bullet point number 2 clearly. We'll get back to bullet point number 2. Let's look at a few pics to illustrate how point number 1 and 2 works. So just to recap, when it comes to the front foot, we look at the popping crease. When it comes to the back foot, we look at the return crease. So let's start in this pic with the front foot. So what is the question that you need to ask yourself when it comes to the front foot? The front foot must land with some part of the foot behind the popping crease, whether grounded or raised. So looking at the front foot, is there part of the front foot behind the popping crease? And when looking at the popping crease, you need to look at the back edge when making this judgment call. So front foot, yes, there is part of the front foot upon landing. And again, you need to look at first landing behind the popping crease. So we're happy with the front foot. Let's look at the back foot. Which crease is going with the back foot? The return crease. Is there any part of the back foot touching the return crease? Yes, there is. That's why this is a no ball, because back foot is touching the return crease. Let's start with the front foot. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? Yes, the whole part of the front foot is actually behind the popping crease. So front foot, no problem. Back foot. Which crease goes with the back foot? The return crease. Is there any part of the back foot touching the return crease? The answer is no. So we're happy with both front foot and back foot. That's why this is a fair delivery. This is a left-arm bowler bowling around the wicket. Again, we ask the same questions. Let's start with the front foot. Which line goes with the front foot? The popping crease. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the popping crease? Yes. So front foot, we're happy. Fair delivery with regards to the front foot. Let's look at the back foot. Is there any part of the back foot touching the return crease? No. So in this instance, fair delivery. We're happy with both feet. Let's start with the front foot again. Again, left arm bowler around the wicket. Front foot, any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised behind the popping crease? Yes, happy with the front foot. Back foot, return crease. Any part of the back foot touching the return crease? Yes. Hence, no ball. Let's start with the back foot now. Any part of the back foot touching the return crease? No, so we're happy with the back foot. Front foot, any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? Yes, there is still a small portion of the front foot behind the back edge of the popping crease. So this is a fair delivery. Let's start with the back foot. Any part of the back foot touching the return crease? No, happy with the back foot. Front foot. Any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? No, there's nothing behind the back edge of the popping crease. That's why when it comes to the front foot, this is a no ball because there's no part of the front foot behind the back edge of the popping crease. Back foot, happy, not touching the return crease. Front foot, is there any part of the front foot whether grounded or raised behind the popping crease? No, there's not. So that's why this is a no ball. And again, I want to emphasize when judging this, you need to judge it upon first landing. So looking at the front foot, where when it lands, you need to make your call when the front foot lands, that first landing. When it landed first, is there any part of the front foot whether grounded or raised behind the popping crease? The answer to that question is yes, fair delivery. If it's no, it's a no ball. Do not judge it where the foot ends up because there are many occasions where you'll see the front foot sometimes of the bowler slides. So the bowler will land with some part of the foot behind the popping crease. That was like first landing. So because the first landing, there was some part behind the popping crease. That's why it's a fair delivery. But then the bowler's front foot will slide and the bowler would end up like in this pick. So don't judge it where it ends up. You need to judge it upon first landing. So that's why this is a no ball because there's no part of the front foot behind the popping crease. Let's start with the back foot. Not touching the return crease, so we're happy. Front foot. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the popping crease? So yes, the front foot is raised slightly, but you can see there is a part of the foot behind the back edge of the popping crease. That's why this is a fair delivery. In this pick, back foot, not touching the return crease, we're happy. Front foot, any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised behind the back edge of the popping crease? No, it's not. That's why this is a no ball. Remember earlier, I spoke about that second bullet point when it comes to the front foot. So I want you again to visualize. So what I want you to visualize is this is a left-arm bowler bowling over the wicket to the batter. And if you can visualize an imaginary line from middle stump to middle stump. So this bowler, left-arm bowler, bowling over the wicket, but the front foot now lands on the left-hand side of the middle stump. Yes, on the field you won't see a line from middle stump to middle stump, but you just need to imagine a dotted line or a line from middle stump to middle stump. So in this pick, left-arm bowler bowling over the wicket. Because the front foot lands on the other side of the line from middle stump to middle stump, that's why, according to the laws, this is a no ball. And the reason is now bowler's now changing the mode of delivery. Bowler's now not going over the wicket anymore. The bowler's actually now bowling left arm around the wicket anymore. Bowling left arm around the wicket. What happens while the bowler is now running in and going to deliver the ball? The bowler breaks the wicket. Law tell us if that happens, either umpire to call and signal no ball. So if a bowler, while running in and going to deliver the ball, breaks the wicket with any part of his or her person, either umpire to call and signal no ball. This shall include any clothing or object that falls from the bowler and this breaks the wicket. You'll often find bowlers running with small towels at the back of the trouser or at the side of the trouser. Law tell us while delivering that ball in the gather, if that towel should pop out at the back or the side and that towel falls onto the wicket, breaking the wicket, umpire to call and signal no ball. So what happens if a ball bounces more than once or the ball starts rolling along the ground? So visualize bowler bowling a ball, and you'll often find this at junior level where bowler bowls the ball, it now bounces more than once, or the bowler delivers the ball and now it starts rolling towards the batter. What does law tell us? Law tell us that umpire to call and signal no ball if the umpire considered the ball to have been delivered and not have touched the bat or person of the striker. The ball then bounces more than once, or it rolls along the ground before reaching the popping crease. So the popping crease is important here. So if it bounces more than once, or i.e. bounces a second time before reaching the popping crease, or the ball gets delivered and it starts now rolling before reaching the popping crease, umpire to call and signal no ball. Also, umpire to call and signal no ball if the ball pitches either totally or even partially off the pitch before reaching the line of the striker's wicket. So if you can visualize this, the bowler bowls the ball and it actually pitches totally off the pitch. The pitch is 3.05 meters wide. So the ball pitches off the pitch. It bounces off the pitch before the bowling crease or the striker's wicket. If that is the case, umpire to call and signal no ball. So what happens if the ball that was delivered causes the striker to leave the pitch, or the ball was delivered and it starts rolling towards the striker, but it actually stops before reaching the striker's wicket? Law now tell us that if the ball was delivered and comes to rest, comes to stand still before the line of the striker's wicket, umpire needs to do now two things: call and signal no ball, and immediately call and signal dead ball. So you only do this. In the previous instance, the ball rolled towards the striker. The law then tells us you only call and signal no ball. In this instance, the ball started rolling towards the striker, but it now actually stops, came to a standstill before the line of the striker's wicket. And if that is the case, umpire to call and signal no ball and immediately call and signal dead ball. These two calls should be a split second within each other. You'll call no ball, and a split second later, you need to call and signal dead ball. Also, if a ball gets delivered and it now starts rolling and it actually rolls totally off the pitch, it now comes to a standstill off the pitch. This now leads the striker to now go totally off the pitch trying to hit the ball. Now, law tells us if this is the case and the striker would need to leave the pitch to play at the ball, you need to call and signal no ball, and a split second later, call and signal dead ball. So what happens if a fielder intercepts a delivery? So the bowler bowls the ball and the ball actually touches a fielder. Law tells us if a ball makes the ball that was delivered makes contact with any part of the fielder's person before making contact with either the striker's bat or person, or before passing the striker's wicket. If this is the case, umpire also to call and signal no ball, and split second later, call and signal dead ball. Just an example of this, let's say spinner bowling, and you have a short leg fielder standing under the helmet. Spinner bowls the ball a little bit wide. So before either touching the striker's bat or person, or before passing the striker's wicket, this ball now goes, let's say, against the foot of the silly point or short leg fielder. This is an example of fielder intercepting a delivery, umpire to call and signal no ball, and immediately call and signal dead ball. Again, we're covering what the laws of cricket say is a no ball. And according to the laws of cricket, a ball that bounces over head height of the striker should be called a no ball. So if a delivery after pitching passes or would have passed over head height of the striker standing upright at the popping crease, according to the laws of cricket, the umpire to call and signal no ball. But in many competitions across the world, if the ball goes above the striker's head, you've often seen on TV, umpires don't call no ball. They call and signal wide ball. So again, that is a playing condition for certain competitions around the world that treats it differently. Playing conditions say if it's above head height, you call and signal wide ball. But according to the laws of cricket, you call and signal no ball if it passes above head height of the striker standing upright at the popping crease. There are also other instances where, according to the laws of cricket, you need to call and signal no ball. It's position of the keeper, limitation of on-field fielders, fielders not encroaching. These 5 instances are other places in the laws where you need to call and signal no ball. These are I'm going to go through a few picks just to illustrate this. So the keeper is not allowed to take the ball in front of the stumps. If the ball didn't touch the striker's bat or the person, or the striker didn't attempt a run, the keeper's not allowed to take the ball in front of the stumps. The keeper needs to wait until the ball passes the stumps, then take it and take off the bails. So in this case, let's assume the ball didn't touch the bat or the person of the striker. This will be called a no ball because the keeper must wait until the ball is past the stumps, then gather the ball and take off the bails to do the stumping. So no ball. Also, according to the laws of cricket, you are allowed a maximum of 2 fielders behind the popping crease on the leg side. Let me go to the next pic to illustrate this more clearly. So this is a right-handed batter. The laws want only at the instant of the delivery there to be a max of 2 fielders behind the popping crease on the leg side. In this pic, if you count how many fielders are behind the leg side, behind the leg side, you'll see there's the fielder under the helmet, there's a leg slip, and there's like a leg gully. So 3 fielders behind the popping crease on the leg side. This is not allowed as per the law. The law only allows a max of 2 fielders behind the popping crease on the leg side. So if this happens, umpire needs to call and signal no ball. Just a bit of field craft. The position of the umpire, the law allows you to go stand on the offside if need be. In this case, you can, the best position for the umpire would actually to go stand on the offside. The umpire would then much clearer be able to see the stumps, the wicket keeper, the popping crease. But just for illustration of this pic, I just wanted to show 3 fielders behind on the leg side is not allowed. Also, fielder is not allowed to encroach on the pitch until the ball passes the bat or the ball touches the bat or person of the batter. Let me go to the next pic to illustrate this more clearly. So this is not allowed. Fielder is not allowed to stand on the pitch. If you do see this, according to the laws, if this happens, the umpire needs to call and signal no ball. This fielder needs to stand, let's say, half a meter back so that nor the foot nor any part of the body encroaches on the pitch. Now, for me, I like to assist the fielders where I can. If I was bowler umpire and I do see this, many players don't know the law. I would just whisper to the fielder just to move half a meter back so that no part of the foot nor body is encroaching on the pitch. But if the fielder encroaches, umpire to call and signal no ball. Revoking a call of no ball. Umpire shall revoke the call of no ball if dead ball is called. Let's say, for example, the bowler oversteps, front foot is over the popping crease, but the bowler doesn't deliver the ball. In that case, we've just heard under the dead ball law, if the bowler does not deliver the ball, umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. But let's say the umpire called no ball, the umpire needs to revoke the call of no ball. If there is a no ball and a wide of the same delivery, let's say the bowler bowls a front foot no ball, no part of the front foot behind the back edge of the popping crease. But the bowler also bowled the ball so wide that you need to call wide. The law tells us that no ball to override the call of wide at any time. So off the same delivery, if there is a call of no ball and there's a wide, let's say, let me use another example. The strikers in umpire calls no ball for 3 fielders behind square on the leg side. The bowlers in umpire calls wide. Let's say in a T20 game, the bowler bowled the ball on the leg side. So bowlers in called wide, strikers in called no ball for 3 behind square on the leg side. Law tells us no ball to override the call of wide. So which one do you take? Do you signal a no ball and a wide to the scorers? No, you don't. No ball to override the call of wide. So you will only signal the no ball to the scorers and wait for them to acknowledge. Ball is not dead upon the call of no ball. So if you let's say you call no ball for no part of the front foot behind the back edge of the popping crease, batter hits the ball to third man, they just started to run. Ball is not dead. You'll allow the batters to run. We'll now see that because a batter can still be run out of a no ball, we'll get to how you can be dismissed of a no ball. When it comes to penalties for a no ball, law tells us that a penalty of 1 run to be instantly awarded on the call of no ball. No ball to not to count as 1 for the over. And the last point under no ball, how can you be dismissed of a no ball? There are 9 modes of dismissal. There are only 3 ways to be dismissed of a no ball. Firstly, hit the ball twice. Secondly, obstructing the field. And lastly, a run out. These are the only modes of dismissal or methods how you can be dismissed if a no ball is called. Last law that I'm covering for this evening is wide ball. And again, for the purpose of this particular course, we're focusing on Morday cricket. Let's Test match cricket as an example. It's not 20 over cricket or 50 over cricket, where there are certain playing conditions in place that guides the umpires on how to call wides. If you see on TV, you'll see there are wide guidelines on the pitch. Those are guidelines that assist the umpires to consistently call a wide ball. Again, those are playing conditions that allows for those wide markings on the pitch in T20 and 50 over cricket. What we're focusing on now is how the law of cricket sees a wide ball. So when it comes to judging a wide, the law tells us that you need to judge the wide if it passes wide of the striker standing in a normal batting position. So that's what the law say. It needs to pass wide of the striker standing in a normal batting position. I played the game for many years at club level here in Cape Town. And it's only when I did my level 1 course did I actually realize, I actually thought the return crease was the wide marking. So if the ball was outside the return crease, then the umpire should call it wide. If the ball is inside the return crease, then it is not wide. So for more than 20 years playing the game, I only realized once I did my level 1 course and I sat in the class as you are currently doing, when the facilitator said, no, it's not the return crease how you judge a wide. It is actually, you need to judge a ball passing wide of the striker standing in a normal batting position. So now the law also guides us. What is the interpretation of passing wide of the striker? So law tells us the ball would be considered passing wide of the striker unless it's sufficiently within the reach of the striker to be able to hit the ball by the means of a normal cricket shot. That is how you judge. Is it wide of the striker? Can the striker hit the ball by the means of a normal cricket shot, like your cut shot, your cover drive, your pull shot? Those are normal cricket shot. So if the answer to your question, yes, it is not that wide that and the player and the striker can play a normal cricket shot, you should not be calling it wide under the according to the laws of cricket. If, in your opinion, it passes so wide of the striker that the batter is unable to hit the ball by the means of a normal cricket shot, if that is the case, you need to call and signal wide. Importantly, when calling and signaling wide, delay the call of wide only once it passes the striker's wicket. You need to see whether there's any contact with the bat or person of the striker. I'll use a mistake that I did many years ago. Bowler was bowling, but the keeper was standing up, and the ball was so wide, and it was very wide, and I called wide early, but the batter then late cut the ball to third man. So now ball is going to third man, and I'm calling wide. I had a bit of egg on my face, but I've learned quickly. I stood with an experienced umpire, and experienced umpire guided me, saying, Abdullah, just delay your call. And as per the laws here, the law tell you, just delay your call. Wait until it passes the striker's wicket. Don't call wide too early. And once it passes the striker's wicket, then you can signal no ball to a wide ball to the scorers once the ball is dead. Again, law emphasizes, umpire, after judging that the ball is wide, wait until it passes the striker's wicket. However, the law tells us that, yes, you do wait until the ball passes the striker's wicket, but according to the law, actually, the law consider the ball to have been wide from the instant that the bowler entered his or her delivery stride. When does the bowler enter his or her delivery stride? When the back foot lands. So when it comes to the definition of, or when the laws of cricket sees when a wide ball is actually from, it's from the instant that the bowler entered his or her delivery stride. But even though the law says from the instant the bowler entered his or her delivery stride, wait until you make that call, until it passes the striker's wicket, then you call wide. Point number 3 is the mistake that I did. I called wide too early, and then there was contact with the bat. Then I had to revoke my call of wide. That's why you don't want to revoke calls of wide. Rather delay it, wait till it passes the striker's wicket, then call the delivery. Also, the law guides us that there are times where the delivery will not be wide. And what is that instance? When the striker, by moving, and because the striker is now moving, the striker now brings the ball within sufficient reach to be able to hit it by the means of a cricket shot. So the law says in that instance, don't call wide, because the striker now, by moving, is now able to hit the ball by the means of a normal cricket shot. Now you should not be calling wide. Ball is not dead at the call of wide ball. Penalty for wide shall be 1 run. So at the instant of the call of wide, shall be 1 run. This wide penalty shall stand even if the batter is dismissed. We'll see later that a batter can be stumped off a wide ball. So even if the batter is dismissed, stumped, that the 1 run for the wide will still accrue to the batting side. And any run scored off the wide, whether it's a boundary, shall also accrue to the score. So law also guides us by saying All the runs completed by the batters, or if there's a boundary allowance, together with the penalty for the wide, shall be scored as wide balls, and this shall be debited against the bowler. Just an example of this, the bowler bowls the ball so wide, it eludes the keeper. It goes past the striker's wicket, it eludes the keeper, you call and signal wide, the ball then goes over the third man boundary. So what are your signals? You need to signal to the scorer wide, and you need to signal 4 runs to the scorer. So in total, from that particular ball, it will be 1 for the wide ball and 4 for the boundary. So in total, it will be 5 runs that gets added to the batting side's score. Wide do not count as one of the valid balls for the over. And lastly, before I hand over to Tom, how can you be dismissed of a wide? There are 4 ways to be dismissed of a wide. Firstly, hit wicket. Secondly, obstructing the field, run out, or stumped. Again, highlighted in green, so there is a question in the exam on how you can be dismissed of a wide. 4 ways: hit wicket, obstructing the field, run out, or stumped. Thomas, thank you so much. I'm handing back over to you.
Thank you, Abdullah, and good evening again to the candidates, and good evening to Langton. I touched on a couple of contentious issues during my presentation, Langton. The first one I wanted to talk about was that boundary catch, where the fielder seemed to juggle the ball over the boundary, but his feet were not grounded when he made contact with the ball outside the field of play. So that, according to law, was a fair catch. Has there been any talk by the International Cricket Council or the Marylebone Cricket Club, who are the custodians of the law, about revisiting that particular law? Because to many people, it doesn't feel like that should be out. It feels like that should be boundary 6. Langton, are you with us? Could you maybe share some light on that particular incident? Good evening.
Hi, Tom. How are you doing? Good evening, Abdullah, and good evening, everyone. The unfortunate thing at the moment is when they had a cricket executive committee meeting and a cricket committee meeting in May, June, what they discussed was that law is going to stay as it is for the next year until they meet again and discuss it. So that law is going to stay as it is, because the reason for that is they are aware of the fact that there's a lot of athleticism involved in the sport, and they are not going to disadvantage players for an act of athleticism until such a point when people then go, no, we don't like this. It's taking the mickey out of it, then they might change it. But for now, it's staying. And this was voted for in June, this past June.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that update. And then last question from my side. We saw the UAE batter, I think it was, who was hit on the hand and then stayed out of his crease, signaled for a physio to come help him. Didn't look seriously injured, so the umpires continued to let play happen, and the batter was rightfully run out. Is that something you discussed as a panel of umpires that evening after that match at the World Cup qualifiers?
I was one of the umpires in that game. I was the bowlers in umpire in that game. So
Great.
What happened, well, what I didn't agree with what happened there is that it was sent up to the TV umpire, because I'm an advocate for bold umpiring, because the guy was clearly out of his ground. And unfortunately, my partner at Square Leg wanted to send that up to the TV umpire so that the TV umpire would be the one at fault if the decision was wrong. And what the TV umpire did in this case was to ask the Square Leg umpire if he thought the ball was dead or not. And he started thinking about it. And then when I intervened, I said, because it was sent up, it means that this guy doesn't think that the ball is dead. What we then discussed after the game was what should have happened or what could have been done differently or better. And the first thing would have been buy time and for Andrew Balboni, because he's the one who threw the ball from extra cover.
Yeah.
And he was also the captain. So we could have bought time by coming together, we did come together and bought time for him to withdraw the appeal if he wanted to. We were not going to ask him. The next thing was make a decision on field, in my view. And if we couldn't make a decision on field, or the Square Leg couldn't make a decision on field, then send it up to the TV umpire, who would then make a judgment on whether the batter was out of his ground or not at the instant when the wicket was broken. The unfortunate thing with what we did there and what eventually also happened in the Ashes, because our game was a week before that incident in England. What could have happened should have happened. And what's being reinforced now is that the umpire is the bowler's in umpire. So when we come together, the question is, does the bowler's in umpire think that the ball is dead? So if the Square Leg umpire thinks the ball is dead and the bowler's in umpire doesn't think it's dead in that moment, then we have to go, the umpire is the bowler's in umpire, and send it up. So that's part of the conversation that the two umpires should have. Do you think the ball was dead or not? If we think it was dead, then we don't go any further. If we don't think that the ball was dead, if we're sending it up, we send it up. If you're making a decision, we make a decision. Over to you, Tom.
Awesome, Langton. Great insights there from the highest of ICC panels. So thank you very much for that information. Afak, you've had your hand up for a long time. Hope you're still with us. Please unmute your microphone and the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, Tom. Good evening, Abdullah sir, and good evening, Langton sir, and my fellows. I have a question actually. So I just started with a few questions, like 2 or 3 questions with me. It happens in the match with me actually. Normally, when the fielders is catching a ball on the boundary line and then touches the rope, but umpires can't see the distance. And unfortunately, the fielders lie at the time, and the batting side or the people which they are standing on the ground. This saw clearly that he touches the rope. So, what will be the decision by the umpire? Because we don't have the cameras on the normal views. So what will be the umpire decision? It is the fielder call to accept by umpire or what?
Very good question, Afak. A tough one for us umpires without the help of a TV umpire. Abdullah, I'm going to throw that one to you. What would you do in that particular case? Because Langton always has the benefit of a TV umpire, so I'm not going to ask him. I'm going to ask you as a club umpire, Abdullah.
So, Afak, you go and consult your strikers in umpire, and he is he or she is the only person that you consult in this. And if you, after consulting, you ask the boundary or not, they say the umpire say no, fair catch, you give the striker out. If you can't decide, you're unsure whether it's boundary or not, So if you're not sure, you need to be 100% sure to give the boundary 6. If you're not sure, you need to give the benefit of the doubt and you need to give the striker out. So at club level, we, yes, difficult, but we need to, let's say, go on the honesty of the fielding side. Mother Cricket, if they are cheating, Mother Cricket will get a way of getting back at them. But unfortunately, you cannot go on the batting side. I've played this game, and many occasions the batting side will say boundary 6, boundary 6. And yes, it might have been a boundary 6, but you'll have to go on the honesty of the fielder, because you couldn't see. You're not taking the fielder's word, but because the two of you could not see that he or she, the fielder, clearly went over the boundary, and that is your decision. You're not basing your decision asking the fielder, did you catch it or not? You're basing your decision on, you're not 100% sure. You need to be 100% sure to give the boundary, because you're not 100% of the boundary. You saw the catch being taken clearly. Hence, you need to give the batter out court. Over, Tom.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. The same situation is, it's a semi-final match actually, and both umpires, not visible, the sides. So we trust on the fielder. Oh, this is the last option. So we cannot go for the batting side or the other people. So we take a decision and we'll give as a catch. I mean, caught out. And one more question I have with Langton, sir. If the bowler collect the ball with towel after throw the ball by the fielder and non-striker batter complain as well, should umpire give the 5 runs penalty plus score runs? What's your opinion, Langton, sir?
So because Afak, if there's no fielding taking place, the ball is just thrown back to the bowler. They are not fielding the ball. Don't go looking for stuff. You shouldn't and wouldn't penalize the bowler for that. It's just they had a towel in their hand when they caught the ball from the fielder. The ball was dead already. It doesn't matter. But if they are fielding with a towel or using anything else other than their body or their person to field the ball, then you would penalize them. But in this case, they're not fielding the ball, so don't worry too much about it.
So you mean to say if the fielder throw the balls and the bowler collect the balls with the towel, it is not a plenty runs, right?
Don't worry about it, yes.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm clear. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the questions, Afak, and the answer, Langton and Abdullah. Next hand up is Zander Gelen. Zander, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Hello. This is a very simple question. It's all just, what do you signal if the batsman ran for, just not he didn't hit the boundary for 4, if he ran for? What do you signal? Do you signal a boundary for, or you just say he ran 4 runs? Thank you.
Zander, if the ball does not cross the boundary, then you do not signal boundary 4. The scorers will see that the batters have completed 4 runs by running and will record 4 runs in the scorebook. It will not, however, be recorded as a boundary. It will just be recorded as 4 runs. This is important because if you go back before World Cup 2019, tied matches where there was no super over were decided by boundary count. In fact, the World Cup final in 2019 was, if I'm not mistaken, decided by a boundary count because even the super over was tied. So when batters run 4 and it's not a boundary, you do not signal 4. The Scorers will record 4 in the book, but not a boundary 4. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Cool. Next hand up is Mohammed Tusif. Mohammed, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? My question is, the fielder in the boundary line, he doing the collecting the catch. The ball is pop out on his hand and he hit the caps, and cap is falling to the out of the boundary rows. But again hit the caps, and the fielder catch the ball. So at that situation, we must game out, or we game as a 6.
Langton, did you hear that one? You want to take us through it?
Mohammed, we probably want to realize that if the cap or a towel is falling accidentally and it's used to catch the ball, it's an accidental act. When we penalize people, it's for intent if they did it deliberately. So the ball, in your case, they were catching the ball, it went up, accidentally hit the cap, and they caught the ball with them still on the field of play. It is a catch that's completed.
Okay,
but if they've taken their cap off to catch the ball with the cap deliberately, then that's penalty runs, and the catch wouldn't count.
Thank you very much. Clear.
Thank you for the question, Mohammed, and for the answer there, Langton. Next hand up is Edgar Ringquist. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Tom and Abdullah, Langton, and all the fellow aspiring umpires. My question is on the noble rule. I would just like to ask about the waist height noble. What constitutes the waist height noble? I don't know if we spoke about it now. Can't remember, like it was there when Abdullah spoke. Can't remember anything about the waist height noble.
Good point, Edgar. It's not in Law 21. It is actually in Law 41, and Abdullah will take us through it.
Okay.
So,
unfair.
Edgar, Edgar, thanks for your question.
Yeah.
So, my answer is going to be based on what the law tell us how to handle if a ball gets bowled above waist height. There are in many competitions across the world certain playing conditions in place that might be slightly different to the law. But for the purposes of this course, we focus on the laws of cricket and how the law deals with certain instances. So when it comes to bowling a full ball above waist height, how do you judge it? So law tell us the first thing that you need to judge is if the ball above waist height of the striker and of the striker standing upright at the popping crease. So that is your judgment point that you need to make. Would the ball have been above the waist of the striker standing upright at the popping crease? If your answer to the question is yes, the striker standing upright at the popping crease, the ball is above waist height, you need to call and signal no ball. The best umpire in the position, it would be the striker in umpire. The striker in umpire has a side-on view, but there's nothing stopping the bowlers in umpire from making a call. But the striker in umpire is in the best position, and he or she needs to own that call. So again, judging point. If the ball above waist height of the striker standing upright at the popping crease. If your answer to the question is yes, it's above waist height, striker standing upright at the popping crease, you need to call and signal no ball. And then the law tells us you then need to give the bowler first and final warning. You need to inform the captain of this. You need to inform your colleague of this. And if it should happen again in that innings, the bowler again bowls a waist height full toss of the striker standing upright at the popping crease, you will then suspend the bowler from bowling in that particular inning. So you'll call no ball again, you'll call the fielding captain, you'll ask the captain, if it happens the second time, you'll ask the fielding captain to remove the bowler from the attack. So just the important facts to remember, Edgar, your judging point is batter standing upright at the popping crease. Is the ball above waist height? Is the ball above belt height? The answer to this is yes. Call and signal no ball. So now you'll often find batters sometimes double stepping.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can visualize a batter double stepping, let's say, to try to get to the pitch of the ball. But now the ball comes full and the ball is now let's say the batter is now 2 meters, 2.5 meters in front of the popping crease. Now the ball comes at the batter on the full, and let's say the batter hits it. And now the batter looks at you. Yeah. Where is your judgment call? Where do you make that judgment call? Do you make it where the ball now hit the batter, let's say 2.5 meters outside the crease? Is that your judgment call? Do you need to check whether it's above waist height, 2.5 meters outside the popping crease? Or where do you make your judgment call? So again, we go back to law. Law tells us your judgment call should be striker standing upright at the popping crease. That is where your judgment call is. So this is going to be a difficult judgment call because the batter is now 2.5 meters outside the crease. Now the ball is above waist height. Thank you, Tom, for putting the pick on. So looking at this pick, where do you judge it? Do you judge it when the ball hit the bat? Or where do you judge it? The law tells us you need to judge it. Striker standing upright at the popping crease. Is it above waist height? So your judgment call needs to be not where the batter now hits the ball. Yes, when it hits the ball is above waist height. But that is not your judgment call. Your judgment call is batter standing upright at the popping crease. So you need to you need to judge that ball moving a bit further, getting to belt height. Was the ball then, when it's next to the batter, above waist height? If your answer to that question is yes, you call and signal no ball. If the answer to the question is no, it's then a fair delivery. It is a difficult call, especially if the batter moves, or if the batter now in this instance hit the ball 1.5 meters in front of the popping crease. But it's a judgment call that you need to make, and if you don't have the luxury of television, you need to make that judgment call. It is a judgment call. Make that split-second call and call it. Whether you think it's above waist height, the striker standing upright at the popping crease, you call no ball. If you think it's not above waist height, you say fair delivery because the ball is not above waist height. Edgar, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. I just have another question pertaining to this law. I played in a game way back in versus Atlantis Cricket Club. One of our bowlers ran in, bowled a slower ball, seamer, pace bowler. He bowled a slower ball to a shorter batsman. He's a very tall bowler. The ball then dipped. Batsman ducked. The ball dipped, and the umpire called it no ball for waist height, even though the ball flicked the bail off the stump. What should have been his call? Is the no ball correct? Because it might have passed waist height if the batsman was standing upright, or should it be cancelled because the ball was busy dipping and it hit the wicket still?
Go ahead, Dula.
Sorry, Tom, rookie error. I was on mute. I started speaking, but while on mute. Edgar, we need to apply the law. What does the law tell us? Where is our judgment call? Is the ball above waist height of the striker standing upright at the popping crease? If the answer to that question is yes, you umpire needs to call and signal no ball. So that is a judgment call in your game, according to the umpire. The judgment that he or she made was the ball was above waist height, the striker standing upright at the popping crease. You're applying the law, and irrelevant what happens after that, you need to apply the law. And the law is if it's above waist height, striker standing upright. If yes, call and signal no ball. So in the opinion of the umpire on that day, it was above waist height. That's why the umpire called and signaled no ball.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, Edgar. Over, Tom.
Thank you, everyone.
Great stuff. Langton, I see you've got your hand up. You want to add to this topic?
It's not me adding to the topic because Abdullah was thorough in his explanation of the laws. I want to talk about this from a fieldcraft perspective. So a lot of times when a wicket falls, umpires come together, they keep talking, batter walks on, they get to the crease, then umpires go back to their positions. To help us judge, because at different grounds it's going to be different, to help us judge bouncers and beamers, we probably want to go back into our positions early. That way, we get a good perspective of the batter coming from, say, 30-yard circle. We pick our markers for the waist height and the shoulder height and the head height of the batter from the 30-yard circle as they walk towards the wicket. And when they take their guard, we can then go, oh, this is my marker for this person's waist, shoulder, and head. So it makes it easier for us to judge bouncers and beamers from that perspective, because we know we've got our markers picked at various grounds or at various ends at those grounds. So this is just a fieldcraft thing for all of us here, if that helps anyone.
That helps a lot. Thank you very much for that tip, Langton. Next hand up is Senthil. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Yesterday I have asked, good evening to everybody, and yesterday I have asked the same boundary line question what you have showed today to the videos. That is what I asked. From my point of view, that should be signal as 6. Maybe the law will be updated in the next year, this year or next year maybe, as Langton is told. So that is what my feeling. The next one is, my question is for the leg side, if the fielder is standing more than 2 fielders for the leg side no ball. That is, how much if the third fielder is standing in the middle of the popping crease, what we can able to give, or is there some part of the third fielder is inside the popping crease, or how we can judge that no ball? Because if the third fielder is standing completely, he need to stand inside the popping crease, or some part is if inside the popping crease we need to give a no ball. How we can judge the no ball for that case?
Abdullah, you want to take that one? 3 fielders behind the popping crease on the leg side. What if a fielder has 1 leg behind the popping crease and 1 leg in front of the popping crease?
There should be no part of the fielder's person behind the popping crease, even if it's just half a hand behind the popping crease. No part of the body should be behind the popping crease. The fielder should be completely on, if you can visualize, on the left-hand side of the popping crease. Yeah, so just to emphasize again, no part of the body should be behind the popping crease. Even if it's a finger, I know I'm getting technical, but even if it's a small finger and it's behind the popping crease on the leg side, and there's already 2 fielders behind square on the leg side, umpire needs to call and signal no ball for a third fielder behind the popping crease. No part of the body. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. If I can just
Thanks
add to that.
Thank you.
Senthil, remember the famous line in many sports, the line belongs to the umpire. So the fielder has to be completely in front of the popping crease. No part of his person can be behind the popping crease, that third fielder. Okay. Next hand up is Eric. Eric, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening to you all. Mine is about where a bowler bowls a ball off pitch and the batsman tries to play the ball and later is caught, maybe by the wicketkeeper or any fielder. Is that batsman out?
Good question, Eric. Langton, you want to talk us through a couple of scenarios there? If the ball pitches off the pitch and the batter goes completely off the pitch to play the ball. Let's talk through that scenario first.
Good question, Mr. Wandera. So, if the ball pitches off the wicket and the batter plays that ball on the pitch, it's a no ball, right? If that ball pitches off the pitch, it's just a no ball. But if the batter leaves the pitch, then it's a no ball and a dead ball. Does that help you in any way, Eric?
Please come again.
So if the ball pitches off the pitch, off the 10 feet, and it's played, it's a no ball. It's like any other no ball. But if the batter has to leave the wicket, the pitch, to play that ball, so let's say this ball pitches on the wicket and then goes off the pitch and the batter follows the ball and plays the ball with no part of his person on the pitch, then this is, even though it pitched on the wicket, is now a no ball, dead ball, because it forced the batter to leave the pitch to play it. But if it just pitches off the pitch and the batter plays that ball from the 10 feet, which is the pitch, then it's just a no ball. And you can't be out caught of a no ball.
Eric is giving you a thumbs up.
Tom, yeah. Still on the same scenario, what if the batter goes ahead and plays the ball for 6 while off pitch?
Once the batter leaves the pitch, he can't score runs off that ball. If he's off the pitch, it's no ball, dead ball immediately. But if he's on the pitch, it's a no ball and a 6 if he plays it from the pitch. Answered?
Happy, Eric? Thumbs up. Thank you. Mohammed, you've been very quiet today. I see your hand is up for the first time. You may unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Yeah, hello class. Nice once again for all of us to participate. I have a question, and I read it last night, and Mr. Lanton says specifically yesterday in class to clarify, as your coach, I respect you guys what you be doing, but however, you says law 41 or 42 is not in the the exam, so to speak. But I just want to be clear what Mr. Lanton says yesterday, because Tom Smith is saying something different here. Mr. Lanton, and I quote, as per yesterday's conversation with him, specifically mentioned an over can take more than 8 minutes or 10 minutes, which is that's time loss right there. But Tom Smith is specifically saying here, when the umpire warned the captain for some final warning for a time wasting, this will kick in, Mr. Lanton. The umpire must clearly, when time wasting is taking the following initiative of the final warning. I'll make it very short. Between a time wasting, like what you just said yesterday, not during and over when 5 penalty runs award. But the question for me remains, because if this just happened to us, I mean, to me and my colleague, at this point, the law teaches us 1 over is for 4 minutes. But I appreciate if you could clarify this. Law is saying here that after you issue force or final warning to the captain, then if there's any other time wasting, you have to award 5 penalty runs. That's one. Secondly, Mr. Lanton, if the batting side captain realize all of this, come on the field of play and say, what happened? You already get force and final warning for time wasting, and you know, the time pass. You specifically say 8 to 10 minutes and over could take to complete. If I'm wrong, I appreciate your answer on this, because this is what Tom Smith is saying there. Award 5 penalty runs to the batting side because the fielding side time wasting. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your answer.
Mohammed, right. I will try to simplify it from what I said yesterday. Remember, we were talking about the last over before lunch. So if that over starts, say, at 11:58 and lunch is at 12, that over finishes at 12:06, that's when it finished. If there was a case of time wasting, still the over has to be finished. Whether we penalize someone or not, whether it was the first time, second time, or whatever it was, the over still needs to be completed before we go for lunch. So we're not going to say, because it was ball number 4, we're awarding 5 penalty runs and we're off for lunch, because we still have 2 balls. We still have 2 balls to bowl. That over needs to be completed. Yes. So that was where my point. That was where my point was, that if this over is 2 minutes long, 4 minutes long, or 8 minutes long, it's not going to matter. It has to be completed before you can go for lunch. The only time you won't complete that over is when a batsman is dismissed or a batsman retires, when there's less than 3 minutes to go for the lunch interval.
Yes.
If that clarifies that up from yesterday.
We discussed that, but
all the other stuff around what happens when people are deliberately wasting time or not was not part of what we were talking about. We were talking about whether we complete the over or not. And we agreed that we complete the over.
Yes.
Whether there are any
Mr.
repercussions
Abdullah,
for it or not was something else.
Mr. Abdullah explained that to me, which I learned. Only when a wicket fall, a batsman retire, inning close, they could take lunch immediately, because agreed time for lunch was 12 o'clock. But however, I just want to be clear on this, but when you're talking there, we already go through that, because you specifically says an over could take up to 8 minutes or even 10 minutes, but the law is saying here is time wasting. I know 41 and 42 not in this test, but just for clarification. Anyhow, thank you for the answer. Appreciate it.
Right. So where I am coming from with an over can take as long as it takes. Remember, we also have allowances in cricket. If the ball goes for 6, it takes 2 minutes to come back. That over is not going to be 4 minutes long, is it? Because there are extenuating circumstances in that particular over. So
hold on. 1 second, sir. If a ball lasts, the umpires, so to speak, should or supposed to get a ball with a similar wear. We're not going to wait for 2 minutes for the ball to come back to field of play.
That depends on the type of cricket you're playing, though.
No, well, it happened to me a few weeks ago. Yeah. Same thing what you say happened to me a few weeks ago. I waste no time. So, because same thing what you said, to eliminate time wasted. So anyhow, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, Mohammed. Next hand up is Najwa. Najwa, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Hi, good evening all. I just want to commend Langton on his response earlier on, I think it's Eric that asked the question about the waist height. When it's and Abdullah explained that it's a no ball when you're in an upright position. Where Langton indicated when your batters come in, your new batter comes in, you actually look at his the length and the height of the person, because ultimately you're the umpire. As I say, umpire's got the last say, the last right. In club cricket, we don't have the third umpire, cameras, and all of those things. So I just want to, like I said, commend Langton in explaining that in detail, because the other gentleman said earlier on he's still on a game that was played with Atlantis, and he was unsure as to was the umpire's decision right at the time or not. So yes, I just wanted to commend Langton on giving that advice to the audience, maybe to take that into consideration when the batters come in order for you to see, because sometimes you will say the bowler is aggressive, he bowled against the body for the height of the ball, and then you have this whole dispute about is it a no ball or not. So thank you for that.
You're welcome,
Najwa,
Najwa.
thank you for your kind words.
We are privileged to have Langton with us for so many lectures. We have had guest umpires before on our courses. They usually only spend about half an hour in one lecture. Langton has spent 3 hours in 4 lectures with us. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, Langton, to be with us. And I think and I hope that you are still available for 1 or 2 more lectures before you head off to Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken.
I am very much available, Tom. Thank you. And I have a club game tomorrow, and a lot of what we're talking about today, I am going to implement that tomorrow. So thank you for this.
Okay, so you don't have the benefit of a TV umpire tomorrow. All the best, Langton. Enjoy those boundary catches rulings. Right, next hand up is Okigbo. Please unmute your microphone and the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a journalist and a cricket enthusiast, but I really have interest in umpiring as well. So I just want to find out. I listened to Abdallah, and then he talked about when a bowler, comes on for a delivery, that the bowler is supposed to communicate to the umpire what kind of delivery he intends to put up, and then the umpire communicates that as well to the striker, to the batsman striker. So I want to be very certain. If at whenever a new bowler comes in, there's always an opportunity. Does this happen in the game, or let's say outside the game? Where a bowler will always have to talk to the umpire, tell the umpire, this is what I intend to do, and then the umpire communicates that to the striker. So that if the umpire if the bowler does something else, he's probably going to be penalized. I just want to understand, does this, is it like always happen for a delivery? Whenever a bowler comes up, there's an opportunity for him to whisper to the umpire, this is what I want to do, and then the umpire quickly whispers to the striker, this is what he said.
Abdullah, mode of delivery. How often does the bowler have to inform the umpire what mode of delivery they are bowling? Right arm over the wicket or right arm round the wicket? Is that before the game? Is it during the game? Is it every over? Is it every ball?
The bowler, once the over starts, and let's say it's a new bowler bowling from your end, the bowler will then hand his cap to you. You then, as the umpire, need to ask the bowler whether he or she is bowling right arm or left arm, or over or around the wicket. You'll then relay that information to the striker. Let's say the bowler's informed you, right hand over the wicket. So the bowler only needs to inform you if the bowler is going to change his or her mode of delivery. Let's say if the bowler now decides to go around the wicket. If the bowler is going to keep on bowling over the wicket, you don't need to inform the striker every ball or every over. If that bowler bowls 5-10 overs from your end and he or she keeps on bowling right arm over the wicket, you don't need to inform the bowler. You only need inform the batter. You only need to inform the batter if there is a change of mode, like going around the wicket, maybe for a few balls. You'll often find, let's say, spinners bowling, and there's a right hand, left hand combination batting at the time. And many spinners prefer bowling over the wicket to the right-handed batter, and let's say they want to bowl around the wicket to the left-handed batter. So when the right-hander is on strike, you will inform the right-handed batter, change of bowler, right arm over the wicket to you. Now they take a single. Now the bowler tells you, for the lefty, I'm going around the wicket. So the next ball, before the bowler bowls the next ball, you inform the now left-handed striker that the bowler is changing mode. He or she is now coming right arm around the wicket. So now let's say they take so they took a single of the first ball. Now the left hand is facing the second ball. Now they again take a single of the third ball. You can just remind the right-handed batter that the bowler is coming back over again. So I'll remind them on 2 occasions. After that, if that is the modus operandi, that the bowler is going to bowl over the wicket to the righty, around the wicket to the lefty, I will then just on 2 occasions mentioning that that's the side that the bowler is going to bowl. After that, I'm not going to every time repeat myself when the bowler is coming around to the lefty and over to the lefty, over to the righty. Unless the bowler now decides he or she wants to bowl round to the righty as well, then I'll inform the right-hand batsman that the bowler is now not coming over to you anymore. He's staying around the wicket to you. So just to summarize, as soon as a new bowler comes on, you need to inform the striker of the new bowler and whether he or she is bowling right arm or left arm. And you only inform the striker if the bowler is going to change his or her mode of delivery. For argument's sake, going now around. If the bowler is bowling a 10-over spell from your side and he or she is going to stay over the wicket, you don't need to inform the striker every ball or every over, as long as that bowler continues bowling over the wicket. Only once the bowler decides to change mode by going around, then you need to inform the batters. Tom, did I answer the question?
Very thoroughly, as usual, and a thumbs up from Ijeoma. Thank you very much for that question. So let's go into the chat box for some more questions. Patience asks, in a situation where the ball touched the boundary rope, but the ball didn't hop across over the boundary rope, will that still be regarded as boundary 4? Remember what I said, Patience, that the inside edge of the boundary line or the boundary rope is considered the boundary. So yes, if the ball touches the inside edge of the boundary rope, then we will signal boundary 4. Then I had a scenario where a bowler bowled a short pitched delivery that the striker tried to play a hook shot, missed the ball, and the ball proceeded to hit the top of the batter's helmet and fly over the boundary, what would we as umpires signal? Most of you got it correct. It is a boundary 4, not a boundary 6. Why a boundary 4? Because it was not struck by the bat. A boundary 6 can only be struck by the bat. So because this came off the top of the striker's helmet, even though it carried on the full over the boundary ropes, it is signaled as 4 leg byes. Right, let's scroll down through the rest of the chat box, and most of you watching that video with the volume off of the boundary catch correctly stated that it was a fair catch. Whether you agree with it or not, that is the law as it currently stands. So fair catch it is. Sentinel is going to write a letter of recommendation to the lawmakers so that it is a boundary 6. He doesn't quite agree with that law, but for the time being, Sentinel, it is a out. Yes, Langton, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just thought about what Central is thinking about doing. What you probably want to do for the MCC to take any law consideration seriously is to go through your board. If it comes from an individual, they will not take it. So your board, you will have to write to your board or the governing body in your country. They then write to the MCC, and Fraser Stewart will then write to whoever else that he needs to write to, because he's the guy that deals with the laws at the MCC. So you probably want to do that through your country, your board. Over.
Thanks for that chain of command, Langton. Yes, it's a very long and drawn-out process for a law to be changed, and you definitely have to go through the right channels for it to be even considered. Afak has asked me to answer the question about the ball going over the boundary for off the batter's helmet. We've done that. And everybody else is saying thank you and good night. So that leaves me to thank all of you for your participation and your answers to questions and questions for the floor. We will reconvene again next week, Tuesday, to go through laws 23 until 31, if we can get there. Maybe not. But same time, same place, different link, which I will send out over the weekend. Have a good evening further. Thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
All right. Good night, Tom. Good night, everyone.
Cheers, NSC.